Welcome to Happy Valley. Well, let's start with production designer Seth Reed. How uh how did you get into this project and how much prep time did we have?
Oh
Not
boy,
enough. We had so much
never
and not
enough.
enough.
Never enough. I got into the project because I've got a little bit of a background in sci-fi. I did The Expanse,
A
and then
little bit. I mean, you've created multiple multiple series and Cosmos. I mean, you're in it. You're the
I
guy.
am in it. I
You're the
am.
guy. Yeah.
This is a perfect project for me because
Yeah.
it's science-based. It's got some historical aspects to it, and there's a lot of room to basically create new worlds, and that's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
So you're looking right now at the gateway to the Mars base Happy Valley, and in the background you see a whole series of buildings or habitats that we created. Off to one side, maybe just slightly in the back there, you see some of the surrounding structures as well, because we really designed this thing out like it's a real place. And that's actually a smelting plant off to the left there, but there's also a nuclear fusion, and there's solar panels, and there's algae ponds. There's all kinds of stuff for this place.
Yeah, they've been there. Last season ended with them getting there, and now they've been there about 9, 10 years, and they have been able to build all this. And that's where we're picking up in season 4. I don't have anything of the collage. I know, I mean, I'm not involved. I'm involved in the collage as like when they did little pop-ups of people like Ellen or newscasters like getting desks and things, but that's mostly visual things that we're not really involved in. I mean, I wasn't. I don't know if you were as much.
No, we were barely involved. And when we
Yeah.
had after we finished shooting in February, on February 15th, a small remnant of the art department stayed on to specifically help visual effects with all of those collage montage pieces.
Yeah.
So they were going through many iterations of how things should look, basically just creating digital versions of them.
Mm.
Because essentially what we had was a person sitting at a desk, and then everything around them for the news broadcast was all digital.
Because what we read was vague of what had happened in 10 years. And then over the season, I think they developed that. That wasn't like day one, script one. They had everything down. That was development through time, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. I think they utilized some of the material as they went along, and they saw the script and they understood how the characters were working, and people would be asking about what happened to some character from season 3. So they really wanted to fill in the pieces. And I feel like that whole montage collage becomes extraordinarily valuable. Like, I was watching this last night in the season opener for with my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, and we stopped multiple times for
Yeah.
them to have a conversation and to set up the reality or alternate reality of this world.
Yeah, it is. It's a great feature that they've implemented in this show, and it's fascinating, and it I think right away makes the viewer think. And even if you weren't alive back then, you're still thinking of like, oh, well, who's that guy? Like maybe they'll go look him up, or Gore and Mike Tyson still biting the ear off, catching Harvey Weinstein early, like all of these trigger things that I wonder why they're saying it now and what that sets up for the future. It's really
Yes.
a fantastic plot that they've put in here. They also get right into it. We're at Happy Valley right away. We're seeing all this, and then we do this long shot through the hallways and then our ops com, which these are screenshots from what we saw. And then this is what it was that you designed so brilliantly, and actually taking a previous set and reworking it and expanding on it, which was fantastic.
It's funny because this is one of those places where the producer really wanted to save money right off the bat. He was kind of taking our temperature, like how were we going to operate? So I was asked, hey, do you think you could take the old set that was here and just remodel it? And of course, the natural answer for a person like you and me is like, yes, of course we
Sure.
can.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can't tell anything about what the old set was. There's remnants of it in the floor pattern, and there's some remnants of it in the overall shape. But after that, the
Yeah.
ceiling is different. Everything's different. We ripped out everything inside that set and redid it.
It was also, I think, half the size.
Yeah,
So,
we made it bigger. Well, it was so filled with stuff
oh
that
yeah, yeah. But
we,
it was
we
so filled that it's a
yeah.
completely different look. It's completely different technology that we're trying to implement, and that sort of forced, I think, a lot of, at least in my dressing and everything, forced the design of it.
One of the things that we wanted to make sure that was understood is that when we're on the surface in the habitat modules that are on the surface, that you get some connection to the outside, even if it's just a little bit. So those portholes, believe it or not, are 2 feet in diameter. So and the room's a fairly big room because of that. You
Yeah.
realize that you see a little bit of the outside, but you don't see much. And we really wanted to emphasize the few opportunities that we had, because when we're underground, which you'll see in some upcoming episodes, things are a lot different looking.
Yeah, there's no windows, and then there's maybe you get a picture of a window, maybe you're sad down there in your little hole. Like, but this also is this is the heart of the whole Happy Valley. This is where they're communicating with Earth, and this is where, everything is coming in and coming out and everything. And we also tried to have the stations that you developed, which replicates the stations in Mission Control on Earth. And
Yes.
for me, just trying to give each person a little personality at their point. Like, did they brought a picture up? Did they bring up a poem? Did they bring up, a picture of their house, to remember what their house looked like? Because as we learned in this episode, it's a 2 year, well, I guess, I mean, it's a 2 year gig for the people. I don't know with NASA or like our people. I'm assuming it was like a 2 year gig up there. But just little things, and trying to personalize stations, and it was hard because I think you and I talked a lot about, well, how much can they bring with them,
Yeah.
and what's in their bag, and how could they bring a crate? Could they bring? No, probably not. You could probably just bring a bag of stuff. And so,
Yeah.
that for me, that was the thought process behind the little dressing in the areas. We also, I think this column in the center is so fantastic because you designed it so that you can see through it, even though we have a bunch of wires and everything coming through. So it gives opportunity for such great shots in the room as a flow when they follow people.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I mean, it's basically a circular space. It's actually, I think, an octagonal space, but for us to have a thing to move all the way around and to get different angles of people, have a moving camera, I think that was a really big plus. And
Yeah.
we worked on this with both of the cinematographers. In fact, one of them originally, this whole central column is supposed to come apart and lift up out of the way. We never did that, but it's capable of doing that. So
Yeah, yeah, that was that would have been cool. I don't know what.
yeah,
I don't know. We didn't get to it. Not enough time.
there's a trick here, which I think you succeeded in helping us with, and it would work. It would be the same inside the spaceship, the Ranger and stuff, which is you don't want to be so much of a slave to technology that you don't allow personality to come through and some sense of uniqueness. So it's easy to look at all of these instruments and stuff and just kind of like look right past them and go like, okay, another sci-fi environment. And the trick is to create a sense of uniqueness and specialness in each of these spaces. And that comes at several levels. One of them is just the architecture of the space, but another one of those is in the details and the personality that we can all bring through.
Well, I think in watching this, because we did it so long ago, and then watching it, when I saw it, my one of my first reactions was, ugh, I shouldn't have put post-its there. Like that was like I just beat myself down on like every scene something. But I'm glad that there's still paper, like that they still use things in that
Yeah,
sense. And it's not just technology, because the conversation and what that holds on to is we can't push it too far because the
correct.
show still has places to go down a decade or so. So that was the other thing, that we didn't want to eradicate, all paper or and just rely on technology. Like we're still in that combination mode.
Absolutely. I mean, it gets too slick, and you see this all the time in sci-fi. People don't know where to draw the line. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy. You never saw me objecting to post-its or little things taped on. And I mean, you're visualizing in your head, you're like, okay, so they flew those post-its
Yeah,
145
I know.
million miles. So those are really valuable post-its. But no, honestly, that's the stuff we need.
Yeah. It's just another layer, and it's part of telling the story that we're not all digital yet. So yeah. um our spaceship, which we actually, I think actually the bottom one, oh no, they're both of the same. The spaceship had a lot of play in this first episode, which was great.
Yes.
A lot
Yeah,
of
one. Yeah.
very intricate. Now what people don't know is that this ship is actually two ships in one that you developed and designed, and everyone from grips and lighting and set deck worked to flip them back and forth a couple times during the season. And you can, in future episodes, you cannot tell that it's the same spaceship. It's fantastic. It's truly fantastic, your design.
Thank you. I'll say that, as with all shows, especially in TV, you run up against time constraints and money constraints. So the only way that we were able to get our way and have two spaceships, because this is both Ranger One and the Hopper, was to do what I call the Russian doll concept.
Mhm.
So and we did that. We had a good construction team, Bobby Mara and his gang, and they actually allowed for our design where the ceiling lifts away and exposes another ceiling, and then the window ports and the consoles, they roll out and new stuff comes in. So it was tricky to get this done. This again, there's a lot of blinking lights, which, by the way, these are based on the NASA spaceship, the Starliner. So that's where those blinking lights come from in terms of the design. But it's also filled out with a lot of references that come straight out of all the research that all of us did. You did, we did, all the netting and all of the bags attached to the ceiling, all of the pockets on the seats and how the seats contain. There's a lot of paper here, by the way, too, using Velcro and every possible technique. So a lot of references here.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still following NASA and ISS and still fascinated by all of uh, everything that we research, because I always say that's one of the best parts of this job is diving into something so deep that you would have never thought that you would, think about for more than 5 minutes. So it's, I love, I absolutely love the research. We had a lot of problems with chairs, let's be honest.
Let's be
And
real.
it got, it's hard because you don't want it to look um too automotive, and you don't want it to look too spacey. Like there's a fine line between these chairs, and I think too, there were things in early scripts and everything where the chairs moved down and they would go flat, and so we try to accommodate that. And then when that sort of goes away, then you kind of start over, and then So the chairs were like a last minute thing. I'm not gonna say like you think you have months of prep time, and then some things just come down to like the last minute. And so the development of these chairs, and they still have to move in and out because, and like this previous one, they're in big suits. And so you have to accommodate for that also, but they have to be able to reach the motherboard there and everything. So I had a little trouble with with chairs. I'm not gonna lie, but
First of all, that's not entirely your fault. I mean, I steered you in that direction because
we were
I,
steered. We were steered in that direction.
yeah, maybe we were both steered that way. I mean, honestly, in real life, the chair right now, these chairs are not designed really for gravitational pull or the pressure of a rocket moving. And I think that that's where I know I got a little messed up because we have a sort of facing forward rocket ship here. We don't have a rocket where in the classic form, people are laying back and the rocket launches. And I think that's our own confusion, my confusion. We do have a rocket that takes off from the surface of Mars and goes up to the orbiting space station. And we do have this rocket, which is different. This is always only in space, this particular ship. So maybe the seats got a little confused between those two.
No, I
And
think I'm just talking overall seats of like even in the, because I can't show the next one, but I wanted to talk about how like the design of seats, you know, we were we were down to the wire with chairs, which you would think would be easy, but
yeah,
it's always things that you think are easy
yeah,
aren't. But yes, there is the other version of this ship actually had the ones that reclined more, and these were, design or wanted to be more upright and everything. But still they didn't come with seat belts. Like our draper Sandy had to like put all these elements in for them. And like you said, we put the little pockets in the back and just tried to, introvert them into our
yeah.
world. But yeah, you know what I never thought of when I thought, oh, sci-fi, it's awesome. Buttons in set deck are expensive. Right? Anyone out there? Like all of these buttons, it's a crazy amount of money. And I didn't know, I had no idea how to budget all this. So, but this in itself is a huge undertaking for the art department to design and then work with set deck to find these gauges, find these buttons and everything. And it's like it's a whole nother level of intricacy that you deal with in sci-fi. And I think our teams did a great job on that.
Yeah, this is a really big deal. I mean, I've been down this road before, but of course, when we did it in previous times, we had a lot more touch screens and things like that to help us out. In this, we had to be tactile. And it's really, really cool looking, but it's insane amount of design work and prep work, sourcing. And not only did you have to like get all this stuff together here, but then there was really close work with the rigging electric department to get all this together. I mean, literally these consoles walked in and these are the side consoles here. These aren't even the main consoles. There's two of them, one on either side, that both look like this, mirror images. These walked in like the day before.
Yeah, that
They
like
barely made it. And I had the director walking up to me saying, like, so where's the rest of this set? How come I don't have this or that? And I'm like, listen, I'm so happy and thrilled that we have a set right now at all.
yeah,
Like we barely made it.
we barely made this. This set broke me as a decorator. I must say, I admit it. I completely like broke down at one point because there's so much work going on here, and every department is in each other's way just trying to get it done, and everyone has the passion. And it wasn't I didn't think it was fair that we didn't have enough time.
We did not have enough
They
time on
pulled
this.
it up in the schedule also. In a defense, they did pull it up a week.
Yes. Yes.
So always be aware that the schedule changes daily in our lives. And but you know, it got on screen, and everyone from, you know, my guys, you know, soldering buttons down to the last minute, my buyer Howard Warman having like extras in case something doesn't happen, it doesn't work right away. And you know, the electrics, you know, there's probably a guy like in the back right there while I'm taking this picture.
Absolutely.
So it was super hectic. It was like 5 in the morning, and there was 30 people in this set. If you can imagine, like, I'm not even kidding. There was 30 people in this set working like an
I
hour before it shot.
Yeah, I have
Not
somewhere I've
even,
got a really funny picture of that, like
yeah.
all crammed into this little teeny space trying to get this thing done.
Yeah. But on camera, you don't know any of the panic. Whoops. And it looks, you know, it's fantastic. And they're in space, and you know, it's lit, and the actors are doing their thing, and you see it almost a year later on screen, and it's like, wow,
Yeah, like who did that?
who did that?
How'd that happen?
But yes, the spaceships and we have the bags hanging. I mean, all of the handlebars, all of the bags, the, you know,
Yeah.
putting the monitors on. And they shot this a lot in the first episode, which and showed it, and showed them, you know, floating a little. And I thought it was great. I thought it, you know,
You're just reminding me. So this set is 6 feet off of the ground, and the whole center aisle from that yellow cage forward all the way up to right behind the two astronauts' main seats. That whole area is removable, and it and can expose down 6 feet down to the floor so that they could have a crane in there. And the crane was had an arm, and that would be how one way to have people float. So there, you could also have them float by hanging them, but we wanted to start with the floating from below. So, and then of course the ceiling removes as well.
right.
So we had a lot of pick points, a lot of ways to move people around in
And
this.
that was another thing, like, you know, we needed to have the set ready so that the actors could rehearse floating, and stunts could be there and figure out their, you know, their world and everything. And so you're kind of like, wait, we have to have it done by when, for who? Like, it's like, no, they can, they have to wait, we're not done. But
It's
you
just so funny too, because on my end, I get the questions from the showrunners or the producers, or the directors saying like, why isn't this ready? Or where did you remember to do such and such? And I'm always like I have to step away sometimes and just be patient and have a moment because there's so many things happening at once and we're in such a rush to get it all done.
yeah. And every department is. And that's a real, you know, that's a stress point in this industry of like, we know it's got to get done, and it's got to look great, and everybody wants their turn in the set. And I can't do all those bags on the ceiling till electrics gets out of my way, or you know, I can't put them up until, you know, they rehearse their stunts, or they didn't want the bag in the center when they were there because they'll just go around it anyway, or you know, and then that holds up other departments, you know, because mine, I'm not done or whatever. And it was very this was very stressful for me, this, just because I knew you just want to get it done and then be able to tweak, and we never got to that. It was like we got it done, and then they shot it, and there
Yeah.
was no tweaking time. So that was so hard as a decorator, that you don't have that extra. I don't care if it was a half a day or whatever.
Absolutely. For me too, as a designer, I want to have some time to just sit on the set
Yeah.
and sit in one corner of the set, literally in a chair, and stare at it and think about it and try to wonder what pieces and parts are there, and it's hard. You're just rushing the whole way through.
Yeah. And look at the design. I mean, the intricacy of like like the cabinets, and some of them opened, and then You know, that the piece in the center you have as like a light source, and it's a map, like you can look through opaque maps on top, and you know, there's a ton of detail in here that they get to later in the season too, but it's a lot. It's a wonderful set, and you gave them movement, you gave them depth, and
Yeah, they
you
have a
know,
lot of depth.
yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of depth, a lot of beautiful. So here's the huge part of the whole episode is mostly, you know, what happens when they catch this meteor, and then, you know, we built that piece there for the actors to hold on to, and then it's surrounded by green screen, and then so I mean, I never knew exactly what it was going to be. I've seen your illustrations and everything, but when you see it in the episode and they're moving around and spaces behind them and everything, it's like, wow, that is fantastic. That is
they-
awesome.
they're just shooting a truss piece, like a 20-foot truss piece on a stage that has black all the way around it.
Yeah,
And you're wondering how all this goes together.
yeah. I mean, going down and watching them film this, and the actors are sort of hanging and moving, and they're on wires and everything. It was awesome to see, because they are. It's just huge, huge space, huge soundstage that we had for Mars. Just the surface and everything, and later scenes and with a lot more surface and rocks and everything. But this was fantastic. To see all put together. I thought it was just, I mean, you had to work so intricately with special effects and showing them your illustrations and or
Yes.
sorry, visual effects. I mean, making sure you're on the same page with visual effects in a show like this is super key.
I think it's interesting because we were developing a relationship with them all along. And for a long time, visual effects was really overwhelmed with just taking care of season 3. So
Right.
a lot of our designs progressed very far down the road before visual effects got involved. But when they finally did get involved and they became very demanding very quickly, we need this, we need this, we need this. I have to say, I'm so proud of the gigantic, incredible team that we had in our department that were able to generate hardcore information to give to them. So they didn't only get beautiful pictures and illustrations. And by the way, our illustration looks exactly like what was shot here. But the visual effects got really detailed material, which later we've developed a technique now where we can take that same detailed material we give to them, and through a much, much simpler process, they could, if they want to, and I'm hoping that this happens next season, they could take that material that we give them and directly turn it into the visual effects
Oh,
sets.
that's fantastic. That's
Yeah,
a
so
huge
we're
step.
really hoping to do this.
Yeah. I mean, the communication daily of well, we're developing this or we're changing this, because they have to work so long in post on this, that we really were like, when I started, they only, I think I watched the whole season 3 before it aired, but I think the last 4 episodes didn't have special effects or visual effects in them yet. So
Yeah,
they were that far behind, like
yes,
two,
huge
3 months.
overlap.
Yeah. So they do a tremendous amount of work on visual effects on the show.
Yeah,
Constant.
I agree. I don't know how they do it, but I do have to say that they were extremely collaborative and very, very respectful of everything we did. And they utilized the material and they utilized it well.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. Um, and you built these pieces too, that they're like surrounded by, and then they expanded on this.
This is interesting because you have to almost freeze frame like you've done here for someone to understand that the design of this ship, which I have all sketched out and figured out, this ship is a tugboat. That's why it has those big heavy tanks on it, and why the actual portion of the spaceship part is just a little teeny thing in the front. And around it is this big ring, which in this shot, you're like, I don't know what that ring, that's really weird. What's that ring? But later you see that ring on the surface of the asteroid, and you get a sense that this ship was specifically designed with these pieces that are moved and manipulated into place to push the asteroid. So it's a really cool shot. I mean, and
It's
again,
so
like,
much science. It's so much
yeah,
science.
there's a lot of science involved, and a lot of going back and forth with Garrett, our astronaut consultant, and also with Osmin, we had a astrogeologist.
Yeah,
So between
that
the
was
two of
great.
them, I get a lot of help when I push something past them, like, what do you think of this? And the next thing you know, I get some real meaningful feedback. So
Yeah, he was at least for me, anytime I reached out, he was so quick to help and to sometimes give explanations that my mind can't really can't really wrap around. But
right.
he was, yeah, he was fantastic. So this build for construction and then us putting pieces on it is a quarter of what is actually on the screen. And then it's so integrated with visual effects that it's seamless. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's fantastic. Let's go to Earth. Let's talk
Okay.
about we then they show the new mission control, because in the previous season the last one was blown up by a bomb. So this revamp of mission control that you achieved here, I think pushes the technology, but again, like with space, we're still early 2000s, and we're still in that world also. But you 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 elevated the stations of the people working in each spectrum of NASA, and gave them more tablets or more screens, but they're still tactile, working on paper and everything, which we show with how you designed that we could put paper on the backs of these desks, and they still had their binders and things like that. So I think it's a wonderful integration of the time of what you got here.
That's I mean, I think you pretty well nailed it. We designed the cabinets uh, to hold not only flat screens, which we're saying in our time period, flat screens are there, and that's fine because we kind of already saw them even in season 3. But we
Yeah.
also had some individual cabinets that were sitting, or individual pieces for the cabinets sitting at either end, which we made a whole lot of. And they had variations with switches and all kinds of things. Like, we never left the tactile part. That was really, really key for this show. We didn't want to just see a hand going over a smooth surface. It felt, for our time and our place, it felt like a little cop out. I think it works great on Star Trek or something, but
Yeah.
it's not so great here. So that's why we got the tactile.
We redid the back viewing room also, and then the side areas are also revamped a little bit. And picking colors for the room always is a challenge, I think. Because like here's the thing, that when we saw this on the show, they really had a lot of atmosphere in there, like smoke and everything, which gave
Yes.
a nice level of like um I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't have put smoke in there, considering the last episode it blew up.
I would say to you that we got sort of a nice bit of bounce and refraction from the smoke, which softened a lot of edges, and it also
Yeah.
blended, made things kind of fill in a little bit. So the smoke was very helpful. This was tricky because this was considered to be a brand new set. And we had to work hard enough to have the audience feel like we're not exactly in the same place. We're in a place that got really badly beat up and really hammered. And in the space of 8 years, they put it back together and they rebuilt it. And again, it wasn't meant to be too techy and too over the top. It's very NASA in its attitude. It's not flashy, it's
Yeah.
practical, it's everything at NASA serves a purpose, and that's how this is too. Nothing is too over the top. And that even extends to the color palette because as much as I love blue, and blue is my favorite color, the blue only really is brought out more than anything by the lighting and the color timing that they did, and even what's up on the screens there. Because the palette of this place, as you know, is shades of gray.
Yeah.
And even what's funny is even the carpet is a shade of gray, and yet it reads like this light brown
Yeah.
taupey.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. I was thinking of like for some of my stills of like photoshopping the proper color in for the carpet. And I was like, no, I can't do that.
Well,
But
I got blue chairs in there, but you can't tell either, really. They're
yeah,
like a blue mesh and you can't really tell. But the blue on top of the consoles,
yes,
so
that's
that's
shown.
important.
That dark blue. That
And
was a very, very,
look at the lighting you integrated. I mean, you lit the set for them, and because it's spectacular when they're sitting at their desk, they're perfectly lit because you have that front panel. When Eli
yes,
comes over to talk to people, he's lit from the panel on top. Like it's really
yes.
great. Taking the control or helping light actors and light the set. I just think it doesn't stand out as some like it's odd or anything. It looks perfectly integrated and techy in a sense. That's great.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was really concerned with some of the lighting in the room, and our original design had a lot more lighting on the perimeters around the walls.
Yeah.
And we ended up moving away from that, and we focused a lot more just on the cabinets themselves. And I think it worked out because the cabinets look really interesting and they're unique. They all have, each station now has an underlit acrylic sign that says what, what it is, thrust or props or
Flight.
whatever.
You see flight there and like,
Light.
yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly. So they're very practical and they look cool, and it looks different than it did last year.
Yeah.
So important.
It would have looked great if the light washed the walls a little bit, but we won't
We'll
harp.
talk about that.
Well, here's those were screenshots. Here is more grayish, and you can see. Well, you can't. It looks. It's just you can't see the blue at all in the carpet either. It's weird.
Yeah, you can see the slightly different shades of gray in the wall panels.
Yeah,
We have an alternating pattern. Um, and it's funny because the cabinets have that, the cabinets, you can see how extreme we've made the design for the cabinets now, how they have a hollow area to hold the flat screens and then a wide, long counter in front of that.
because they still need a workspace. We also had a tremendous amount of wires underneath that we had to. Well, there's like you can lay wire on a piece down there, and that little panel covers kind of the mess of it because I don't. There's a lot of times like I don't mind wires like because it's realistic and it gives it some some body in there. But
Yes.
on the floor, it didn't. You had to make it look nice underneath the desk, or it would have been like a rat's nest. So
Yeah.
I was glad that we had that little privacy panel there to kind of disguise what was going on. That it worked out great for us.
And again, I just want to say, like, your people like Dave and Dimitri and Mark, I mean, you had a really thoughtful group
Fantastic.
of set dressers. Of course, Patrick, your lead man. I mean, these guys were very organized and they really understood right away what was going to be needed here. Like it just, I remember so many times I'd see Dave on the phone. He's like calling for reinforcements on
Yeah.
something, asking for some very, very good managerial style, in that little group.
The guys were fantastic. Everything from like, oh, where's we need more exit signs, or we need this, and having a couple of guys, Mark and Rick, who had been on the show previously, really helped us because we were new. And they kind of, knew where some bones were buried, and some conversations of previous dressing, and they like this, or I don't think we ever did that, things like that we would get into discussion. So this type of set is fun too, because you can give set dressers direction, and then they go in, you provide all the dressing, and they go in and they have fun with it. Like they're writing the post-its, like Mark was sitting there writing like intricate post-its for people, like for flight pattern, for ops, for everything. Like we really tried to specialize each section there, and the guys did a fantastic job. But yeah, wonderful. And we should say those huge screens are projected. There's a huge projection in the back that projects up to these screens. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It takes a
Yeah.
lot of space, a lot of stage
Yeah.
space in the back
Yeah.
for these screens. But yeah, no, I think the revamp, I think it shot very well. I think it looked great. And then we go to Russia, Margot's apartment. Poor Russia. Poor Margot's in the cold in her
Yeah.
bedroom. Now we tried to match the bedroom that you saw at the end of season 3. So we had that
Yep.
to try to get all the pieces back together and everything, and they tried to recreate exactly the scene. um Everything's kind of mute dark colors. The wall tone that you gave her in her apartment, um it's it's depressing, but they gave her an apartment, they gave her a place to stay, they didn't put her in a cell
Yeah.
or something, so that was nice.
Yeah. No,
And
I mean, what
yeah,
happens to Margo is really typical of in real life of real defectors like Philby and others that ended up in Moscow. They just tuck them in a corner basically and ignore them. And Margo, of course, is going to bust out of that because she's so important, such an amazing character, such an amazing person. But we had to kind of figure out how to make this place look a little bit drab and musty, but also give aspects of her personality, her interest in literature, her interest in science. So you see different pieces and parts. Obviously, her interest in music left over from last season. All of these things, of course, she's got a CRT TV. We're in Russia now, so technology's a little further back. We didn't really get that much into her kitchen, but her kitchen had a lot of great personality that was developed based on some really great research that we had. And maybe a little secret to just tell you is that the only way, again, the only way we could afford to do this set,
yeah,
have one set be two sets. So that living room and that bedroom are actually the same set with a bunch of things moved around and some walls popped in and out.
yeah. The window wall moves over, it plugs, and you plug the kitchen. Well, I guess we made it in, we said it was her bathroom, I think.
Yeah, we partially masked out the kitchen so that it only played when we were looking at the living room.
Yeah.
When it was the bedroom, it felt like there was a bathroom back there, and we had the door and a little bit of a fixture showing. It was tricky, but that's what we did.
Well, my buyer, Katie Shirey, went to like a Russian house sale of like someone, and we even had notebooks that were written in Russian. God knows what they said, but like especially kitchen items, like those tins back there, the hanging pieces. She did a phenomenal job, like deep diving into like Russian living, and we got Russian products and food, and again, we put in, she loves to read. She plays the piano. I was really wanted a piano in there, so I'm happy everybody went for it. Got the piano, that. And I think too, it's it's a dated apartment, but that's like they gave her a really nice place to live, really.
Yeah,
It's
for
it's
for a Moscow apartment, she's got a pretty good place.
Yeah. So, yeah, the curtains and everything, and the lace, and even here, like matching what they had previously, those beautiful shears that they had in there. Yeah, I mean, and we go back I think one more time to her apartment, I think. I
Yeah,
think
we're going to be in it again, and later on in the season, we're actually going to see the outside of the building.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
so you went to Bulgaria, right?
yes,
Bulgaria? Yeah,
yes.
Bulgaria.
Hmm.
After we were done shooting to do exteriors for Margo. And I mean, the whole the whole scene of her walking through the neighborhood, and the architecture that you chose to show, and it's winter and it's cold, really read as like this is her cold little world now, and everything's even the architecture that she was just walking down that like outside hallway of columns and everything,
Yeah.
so cold and cruel. And this building is fantastic, and we need to talk about your mural.
Uh, well, first of all, the building is obviously, well, it's not obvious, I guess. This is a Soviet era building. So this is perfectly evocative of the style of architecture. It was designed by a Soviet architect and built in 1980. So it's right out of the period of Soviet, I'm going to say modernism, which a lot of people like to call constructivist.
Mm-hmm.
Even from the outside, they'll attach the term brutalist because there's a lot of concrete and big, massive pieces. But what's great about it is the ceiling is kind of a ceiling you would not that much see in the United States. That these ceilings, and you're going to see more of this building as we progress through the season. So much of this just really individually designed and beautifully put together. The mural, of course, is from our art department. That thing is like, I don't remember, something like 24 feet or 28 feet high. And there was a lot of time spent getting it approved, a lot of back and forth. We designed it. It was actually designed by our graphic designer in Bulgaria, but it was during a time period when I was in Los Angeles. So I was, believe it or not, all the time that we were working on all the stuff in Los Angeles, I was also working with the Bulgarian art department,
Yeah,
like a lot of stuff
you
figured.
you had like two full art departments
Yes,
in different countries
right.
working.
And they're plus 10 hours.
Yeah, plus 10.
Very narrow little window where we all can talk and like be awake and stuff. But anyways, they built that. So that's actually fabric. That's
Oh,
printed.
so great.
You can't even tell. There's a seam right down the middle, a horizontal seam, as I remember.
You can't even see it.
Can't see anything. You don't know what this is. Is it a solid thing made out of tile or, no one can tell, but the graphic is so expressive, and so perfect for the building. I mean, I just felt like that was a full-on bullseye.
Yeah. It's it the color just it doesn't pop. Like it's subtle enough that it's integrated into the space. It's not it's a fantastic ode to their space program, and sort of but putting the red in there, I feel like is such a statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because
It really, I mean, it's funny because again, when we talk about color, the show, so much of the color is either found in individual pieces or in costumes.
yeah.
Uh, you will see more color coming up on the Soviet side of the space program than you will on the NASA side, believe it or not. So in some of the locations that we're going to shoot in this building, you'll see a lot more color.
Hmm. Yeah, you did a lot of shooting over there. You shot for 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after we finished last January shooting, you were on a plane like the next week and
That's
then
the
prepping,
next day.
yeah,
Yeah.
prepping for like a week or so and then shooting. It was unbelievable.
I actually prepped a little longer than that.
Mm.
And we had
Good.
already prepping. I had already been there for an initial scout and then for a December visit. So I was kind of like already on the move to try to like get a lot of things lined up. So when I left in December, they knew a lot of things they needed to do and they were already working on it. You're going to see the statue, which is 18 feet tall at some point.
Oh yeah. We do
And
see that. I didn't capture that. I think we do see that going into that building.
yes,
I forgot to put that on
you,
that statue you did, yeah.
you'll see a lot more of it in episode 3, but they give you a quick look at it in episode 1.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a little Russian church, by the way, right in the middle of Sofia. So that this is an incredible find. And when we saw this, we're like, oh, we got to use this.
Yeah. Because it screams Russian architecture with the
Absolutely.
yes. I mean, and perfectly like benches and everything. Or did you put the benches in or were they there?
Those benches were there. We brought some benches as well, but we ended up we liked the benches that were actually there. So we moved them we had to unbolt those. We weren't allowed to touch them.
Mm,
Of course, we unbolted them and moved them to where we wanted them.
of course. We're we're priority here, people. Well, here's the monument outside of NASA, which I also think design wise is another element, on top of everything else that you're doing, you have to research monuments and, giving giving that realism to it and what would it actually be. And that's a very hard design to do and to make up. And I love that it reflects kind of uh not it well, it has the names of the people who died in the explosion of the building, and then but it's also like like a pillar of strength because of the material that you used.
Yes. I hope they dial in a little closer because we certainly didn't see much in episode 1, but I think there is a point where we play something right in front of this. Because this is a remnant of the old NASA building, and these are the people who died. And even though you can't quite see it very closely now, it's all very significant. And I think it's a nice ode, a low key NASA style, low key memorial to everybody.
Well, I think they do zero in on Margot's name
Eventually they do, not in episode 1 though.
because Leda's out there at I think another
Yes,
scene. I think that's when they do it.
right.
Um, and we also had a wonderful new character, Hobbs, to decorate for, and he becomes the head of NASA. And it's a bill it's a state issued building that you're designing. So then it becomes more about like what would he have in his office, and he's kind of a showboat, and he's kind of a he
Mhm,
Chrysler, I think it was, right? And so
mhm,
there was a lot of elements to throw in for dressing for me. Like it was like the first electric car or hydro.
mhm.
So we
Yeah,
had a
first electric car.
model of that built in the background, which you'll see later. Um, but then, spaceship programs that he was a part of, he's got Danielle's boots, and that was a huge sort of
Yep.
discussion and undertaking with not really like what are the boots or where are they or anything. It was how much dirt to put on the boots from Mars, that kind of discussions that you think you're never going to have. But he's a huge part of the storyline this season, and it was a nice character to dive into because I think the writers gave us like 5 or 6 pages of background on him, and that was so incredibly helpful. I can't tell you, to have this huge background story on this person. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he's full of character. He's a really interesting character in the show. And you go in his office and you see all kinds of pieces and parts. I mean, this is one angle, but
Yeah,
another angle is them sitting on the couch. I think we moved the couch around,
yeah,
finally get the right place for the couch to be in the right environment. And we frame the couch with personal effects on either side to again put Danielle into his environment and sort of strengthen the placement of who Eli Hobbs really is.
yeah.
And it made him work. He's a very good actor, very good character, and made their relationship. I felt like the conversation between the two of them was a pivotal moment in the show.
Yeah, I do. I like this office better on seeing it on the show than I did seeing it in real life, if that makes sense.
No, it
Because
totally makes sense.
sometimes
Me too.
like you're decorating things and you're seeing it as a whole, and you're like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make sense over here, or this is too big, or but when they shoot it, a lot of times they don't give us a wide or whatever. And you are seeing like, oh, that was good that I had that spaceship model back there. Like you could see that. Or later when he's at his desk, hopefully you see the car more or things like that. So I actually think it shot better than what I felt the room was. That makes
No,
sense.
I mean, this set was really about the details. And it's funny because usually as a designer, I want to see a master shot. I want to see the whole set. I certainly felt that way about some of the sets on Mars. But this particular set, I really love like your lower right photograph that shows Danielle's boots. It shows the book. It like all these pieces, and what's on his desk, by the way, is the same way. There's a lot, and in the bookcases around. So there's a lot of details to key in on. I think that's the way to cover him and this set.
My buyer Katie Shirey also, this was one of her sets too, very intricate in detail. And yeah, I think it played really well. Another thing that you and I were very adamant about was getting new photos in the hallways and using some of the new photos that have only been discovered in the
Yes.
in the last year, which I think
Yes.
brings another level to that. And I should say the picture with Danielle on the left, that picture is actually made by a fan, and one of the showrunners saw it and loved it, and we got permission from this like college kid to use his piece, and they played off of it wonderfully. She's looking at it because that's her ship, that's Sojourner, I believe. And they come off of that. It's just opens up this hallway of this, really bright art on the walls in the hallway, which I really liked. What is it,
Yeah.
James Webb, right? With the James Webb,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
James Webb, and then that's our Hopper.
yeah, and then
So
back,
they had a little of everything. It was really well done.
yeah. And it was a nice little moment there. And then at the end of the episode, we're in the astronauts' quarters, and this is Ed's room. Um, and a lot of discussion of what exactly would be in here. I don't actually think this is complete. Oh, maybe we put some more pictures up as he went up on the side. Oh, we put the vent in. But what would he have with him? They do that great little montage at the end of all his old pictures that he brought with him. Um, we did my buyer Ashley Rice, who did most of the space sets. You know, she got the Matchbox cars that he drove in previous seasons that he would bring up there because he had a thing for cars.
Oh, that's great.
Or
Cool
other,
astronaut thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
hats that he's worn, and he was in the naval pieces. And so we only had a little bit of space to get that character in, what books did he bring with him? And he barely has paperwork because Ed's not doing paperwork at this point, you know. But the design of this is so fantastic with that window that you designed to bring in the red. You can see a guy out there, like, which is really
Yeah,
funny.
the guy out there working.
Yeah, but can you talk about what elements you knew you needed in the room, and then how you got to this?
Sure. First of all, you'll see on the pattern of the walls is kind of reflected in that floor diagram.
Mhm.
And as we probably know, like in space, nothing is going to be square. That's certainly not on Mars either, because the atmosphere on Mars is just a very less than 1% of what it is on Earth. So what it means is that everything has to be like a pressure vessel. Everything has to be able to resist the enormous difference in pressure between inside and outside. So this is not, you'll see round or curved spaces, and you'll see hexagonal or octagonal spaces for that reason. And again, we're adhering to the idea that we get a little bit of the luxury of seeing out a window, which you wouldn't get to have if you were underground. But we're really very much about protecting against radiation. And that's why there's so much solid wall everywhere as opposed to a whole bunch of windows everywhere. Otherwise, the space is set up very, very practically. There's a little bit of a reference to a boat or even an aircraft with all of the cabinets that have safety locks or clickable locks on them. And by the way, any number of those do open. I know
Yeah.
certainly some of them straight in front of us open, and there's clothes hanging in there and things like that. So, and I'm sure that if on another season they play more deeply into this set, we'll be able to go back in and modify some of those to make even more practical. Also, there's a lot of shots where they pull that wall out, that tufted wall
Yeah.
on the left above the bed. There's a shot right there. So you get, this is how we give the reverse. Everything's wild in this room, or a lot of things are wild. The previous shot where the table is, that wall would swing out, and so would the wall where where the exercise bike is. And
They're all
also
fabric. They're all fabric. My draper, Sandy Summers, did a phenomenal job. Um,
amazing
Tons
work.
of fabric walls in a lot of the sets you'll see this season, and this is just one of her beautiful beautiful creations that you wanted that ribbing in there. You designed it that way, and I think she
Yes.
nailed it perfectly.
I think we wanted the texture and the pattern, but we also wanted to convey a sense that not everything is a hard edge, that we needed very much the softness in the room and a little bit of personality that we could add to it on those walls.
Yeah. This is actually, and it's not a spoiler. You see, you're going up to Mars, but this is when it's dressed as Danielle's quarters. So it's, we went back and forth with chairs, a lot of chair, and what would they have? And it's a minimal amount because what are they actually bringing up there? Do some people have like a lounge chair? Do some people exercise? We went back and forth a lot of what's in. They have a table to eat at if they bring food back to their room. Um, you know, and personality wise, it's pictures, books, it's little things. It's she had like more like female things, like like a more robe and slippers that we tried to put in there. At least she brought some comfort with her, things like that we tried to say. But each quarters is basically you're given like a set of stuff, and then a minimal personality of what you can bring in there. So we had I think Ashley Rice also deep dived into Danielle's background of what has she been doing for the last 10 years since she retired. And it was a lot of traveling, and we thought maybe she did the state parks, the national parks. So we had a lot of those little pieces in there, and photographs. But it's it's fun in a sense of, okay, we have budgetary wise and space wise on set. We built one. astronauts' quarters, and now how can we make it look different for the different characters? It's because that's what it would be. They would all be the same.
Yeah, it's modular.
Yeah.
There, it's all a series of matching pieces that are made. And part of the question was in a greater sense, what got fabricated here on Mars and what got brought up from
Yeah.
Earth. And there's a little bit of a trade-off where you kind of can recognize that, and you do know that some spaces are custom spaces, like the entry port, which we're going to see in upcoming episodes. So
Yeah.
and this module could have been either way. This could have been prefabricated pieces that are shipped up as a kit of parts, or this could have been fabricated in their factory smelting plant that they have here.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things you have to think about in well, how did they get this, or why would they have this, and things like that. So we think a lot about that, and you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. What was your favorite set this season?
Oh my gosh, that is really, really a hard one.
I know it is hard.
There's so many sets. First of all, I just have to say, in the first three episodes, we had almost 150 sets.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like those are recycled sets from last year. These are 97%, 97%, and 100% new sets. So for the first three episodes. So we had a vast quantity. I would have to say probably the Russian doll spaceship is my favorite
Mhm.
because it was cleverly done and assembled in concept as well as execution. And so I loved it for that. In general, just the feeling of walking around on that Mars base and
Yeah.
walking down all the different corridors and turning a corner and you're in the suit room and going somewhere else and you're going to an elevator that goes down below. It was amazing. I
Oh my
mean,
God. It's
the
amazing.
greenhouse, the commissary. I mean, these sets were incredible.
Yeah.
If I say so, I mean, I know I'm like patting myself on the back, maybe, or us, but
Well, I don't care.
I don't
Pat
know how
me.
we pulled it off,
Yeah.
honestly.
I mean, I'd have to say mine is the repair room, which I think they're only in like maybe twice, but there was such a level, and everyone sort of got into it. The dressers, the buyer, Ashley Rice, everyone sort of got into where will they solder this over here, and asking wardrobe for extra pieces, and the art department providing, the specific kind of hooks that they would use to hang things and helmets. And it's a tiny little room, but I felt like I reached a level of detail in there that I really enjoyed. And
Yeah,
I think it's in episode 3 or 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
Episode 3.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Um,
go in there with him.
yeah. So, I mean, I think too, it was you like almost you're in awe of um walking around the base, and then we have other levels. You designed like 2 other levels to this base, and you can walk and talk for miles um down there and up here and everywhere. Like it was an amazing thing. What did we have? 4 stages?
We have
One
4 stages. That's right.
packed of
Yeah, all of them packed. Yeah, all of them filled.
yeah.
And
Um yeah. It was very special, and seeing it all lit, and it was just great. It was and I brought my little boys. They were like they still talk about the spaceship, so it's fantastic. Well, I'm glad we got to talk about our work.
yeah, this is great. Really fantastic. I'd like to do this again. We should talk on another episode as well.
We should do the finale. That's big.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
finale.
Well, the finale will show a lot of the sub level,
Yeah.
and that could be great.
But we
We
could
should.
also throw in anything that came up, the commissary, there's tons of the entry port. I mean, by then we'll have seen everything. We could talk about everything. But I think it's important introducing all these sets, and that's why I wanted to grab you now. So
I
thanks.
love it. It's fantastic. Let's do it.